Hi guys, welcome back. It's UK here. This is a response to my own vid, which in turn was a response to another vid on player agency. Now, my vid caused a little bit of a stir, I think. I'm not entirely sure. But certainly I've been, over the last day or so, nattering in comments a lot with the Spirit Coyote. And the two of us trying to, I think, in his case, trying to understand what I mean when I talk about adventure paths and sandboxing, and me kind of trying to put that across. But I am terrible in any format of writing to explain myself. As much as I like to stream of consciousness, just talk these vids, I find that much easier to do than trying to explain it in a written or typed format. So I'm going to try and explain here on this vid, and hopefully it might clear things up for a few people. Okay, first off, so this is essentially the difference between a adventure path and a sandbox. This is a good example that I've been using during my examples. This is Shackled City Adventure Path from Wizard of the Coast / Paizo. This is the sort of thing that I like to run. I've always liked this sort of thing, all the way back to the beginning. Because essentially what this is a full and complete campaign. And it runs from the introduction of the characters through first level through to like 19th, 20. And for me, that, as I said, that's what I like. It is basically the introduction of characters, first chapter, mystery, pre-written locales, clues, so forth, leading to somewhere, solve that, next clues leading to chapter 2, again repeat, and so on. And you've got 12 chapters in that book with gaps, I can't remember exactly, but you've got gaps between some of them before an event takes place which then furthers the story. And those gaps can be used by players to have their characters craft items, or to do some other things that they might want to do. Now, I'll point out here the difference between this and a railroad, for me anyway. If you were to just run that as is, with no other side quests or anything else like that, and you didn't allow characters, or the players and characters, to do anything to the story or do anything away from the story, then you're looking at a railroad, and that's bad. But what I do is, I'm quite happy if players come up with something else that isn't written in that scenario. If they decide to travel to somewhere, whether within the locale, or they want to travel to another city where they think there's might be clues, I don't stop them doing that. They can go and do that. That's fine. If they can come up with another way round a plot line, or they have a really clever, light bulb goes on moment, and they're able to leapfrog part of the story. I mean, the chapters isn't that big enough. You're not going to be able to leapfrog entire chapters. And the way these are written, I will admit this one, you couldn't miss out a chapter. I'm not going to argue whether that's good or bad, but I'm just going to say, but if you can come up with something where the players can leapfrog ahead a little bit because of their own ingenuity, then fine, I let them, not a problem. If they turn around, say in one of those gaps between chapters, and say, right, we've had a little conflab, we're not going to craft anything, whatever, but we would like to possibly look for another dungeon to get some more, treasure, or something before the next chapter. Fine, I'll throw something in. If they want to go back and look over areas that they've already investigated, old dungeons covered in there, then fine, I will quite happily allow that to happen. But generally I find a adventure path generally rumbles on quite nicely, and you can fit stuff in, and you can let players, as I say, they get wiggle room to do what they want to do, and their ideas can alter some events. That to me is an adventure path. It's not railroad because the players have options. But for me though, a sandbox game is the complete opposite. There's none of this. You couldn't, I don't think, run Shackled City or any other adventure path as a sandbox game. I don't think it's possible for what I consider a sandbox game. A sandbox game for me is one where the players have complete control. In fact, I've known ones where the GM didn't even have scenarios. They had a host of notes, folders full of notes, maps here, there and everywhere, and the players pretty much dictated what they were going to do. That's a bit of an extreme one, to be fair, with the GM improvising everything that happens. However, more reasonable sandbox games, an example would be in the Dark Heresy campaign that I'm playing in at the moment. We had one scenario some months back during the summer where our characters were tasked with travelling to a space station out in the middle of nowhere, a kind of Mos Eisley meets Deep Space Nine sort of thing, looking for an Inquisitor who disappeared. All we were told is that they were known to be using that station as kind of like a stopping off point, and one of his acolytes would be on the station, and if we can find him, we can learn where the Inquisitor's gone, and then we can find out what happened or travel there. And when we arrived, that's great, and we did some stuff on the ship, and then when we arrived and docked, that was it. We were given maps of all like 5 or 6 floors, and there's areas, you've got station personnel areas, you've got residential areas, you had a huge marketplace, you had like the underbelly of the station, you had kind of like the bilges equivalent, we had all this, and it was pretty much a case of, you're here, off you go, find this guy, it's entirely up to you. And it took us probably 2.5 sessions of about 4 hours a session to find this guy. And that's wrong in my mind. Because basically what happened was everyone just went, and okay, we started going, where's he going to be? So we staked out the tavern sort of places, the drinking halls. Wandered around the market, characters did some buying and selling. We asked, trying not to ask too much about this person, but asking around. We found some other clues related to it, but it still took us 2.5 sessions to find this guy because the GM wanted us to, wanted this to be more realistic, and it's up to you. And I cannot stand for the life of me that type of game. I much prefer the straightforward thing. With this particular scenario, once we found him, we learned where they'd gone, we travelled to this planet, found their base of operations, and then once again we were hit with another thing. We were just given a large map of the continent. He could be anywhere. We had a ship to fly about, and we had some little car things we could drive around the planet, whatever. But it was still like, these clues lead everywhere. And it's like, okay. So again, we wasted, and I will probably say wasted, at least 2 sessions, possibly 3 actually thinking about it, just trying to find this guy before we got to a location and we were able to sort of like carry on the story as we wanted to. Sandbox games are not for me. I can't abide them as a player, and I certainly don't like them as a GM. As a player, I like the Adventure Path style format, and the reason is, when I turn up to a game session as a player, I'm not there to play my own character background. In fact, if I write a character background, it's probably half an A4 side max, and even then it's more there just for the GM to get an idea who my character is, and for me to have something to fall back on if I need to think about what my character does or would do in a given situation based on that. I'm not there to experience the world. I can learn the world as we play. I'm there because when I role play, when I'm a player, I want to tell the story that the GM has prepared. And I've done this ever since I started role playing, because I was a player first before I even picked up a DMG. And I've always had this, the story comes first. I want to tell the story, I want to get the clues, I want to find out what's going on, I want to get to the end, and I want to, defeat the baddie, or stop the demon being woken up, or, close the gates of Cthulhu can't come through, whatever. And thankfully, I have regular players who have that same sort of approach. You know, they don't want an awful lot. They don't want Amdram. They don't want either. They're quite happy to tell the story. Now, I'm not going to like screw the characters over. I'm not going to turn around, as I mentioned in the comments to my last one, and have them roll up characters only for them to find out that suddenly we're going to do a fantasy version of Pirates of the Caribbean. It's all on boats with cannons and pirates and sea monsters, because that would just be unfair. You know, they'd get some idea of what the initial concept of the campaign is going to be. But for me, that's the difference. It's not. If I could just look up the comments we had here. For example, Spirit Creative here makes a comparison using the Fallout computer games, saying that's a non-linear campaign where one chapter leads into the next, but you can explore and play your way through a number of other possibilities within each chapter as a way of getting there. And yes, I will say you could take that as a sandbox game. But to me, computer games aren't sandbox games because they still have a plot, and you are following that plot. Even if the game comes up with several different endings you could possibly get, you are playing a plot, and there's only limited places you can go. That's an adventure path. When a computer game turns up that gives you effectively an entire world or kingdom, whatever you want, and you can do anything, and there is no all overarching plot, it's just loads of possible, I suppose an MMO is the closest you come to that. That to me is a sandbox game. Anyway, I've waffled a little too long, I didn't mean to do that. That's trying to explain more my take on the adventure path side of it compared to the sandbox side of it, and what I think both of them are. Anyway, thank you for watching, and take care and good game.